What's up, and welcome to Red Letter Disciple. I'm Zach Zehnder, your host, and really want to challenge you to be a great disciple of Jesus no matter where you are. Hey, we got a fun episode today I'll tell you about in just a moment, but I want to first off thank our sponsor, Hodos, H-O-D-O-S. It's a new nonprofit in the LCMS. It is designed for 18 to 29-year-olds in the Lutheran Church. We are getting ready and putting plans together for a Lutheran young adult gathering in 2027. And so I cannot wait to share more with you. Hey, if you want to stay up to date, you can go to our website, hodosway.com. Hodos, by the way, means Greek. It doesn't mean Greek. Hodos is Greek, and it means way or path or road. And so go to hodosway.com, HODOSWAY.com, and you can stay up to date on everything happening with this exciting new ministry that we genuinely believe is going to shape the future of the Lutheran Church as we really pour into the next generation of young adults. Today episode, we have three guests coming on. We got Tyler Rohlfsen, Matt Rossow, and Kristie Webb. Tyler is the campus director and in the SMP program right now. And Kristie Webb is the associate campus director, and Matt Rossow, the former president of what is now known as King of Kings in Fremont. This is kind of a fun episode where I get to wear a couple of my hats, not just in Red Letter, but in King of Kings as serving as a teaching pastor and as the multi-site director. I just wanted to share the story of this merge that we completed with what was known as Good Shepherd in Fremont, Nebraska, who had a 70-year amazing history, but was on years, if not more than a decade and a half of decline, and decided to do something bold to investigate and to have conversations around what a merge could look like with King of Kings in Omaha, Nebraska. So here we are, more than a year after it's become King of Kings, about 6 months after it publicly relaunched officially. And I just wanted to share this story to show you that new things are possible, that innovation of ministries, that great things can happen, that lives can be changed. And let's continue to think about new things, innovation, when churches are in decline. And so we dive into merge and a lot of what happens in a merge and what's good and what's bad. And we also dive into the importance of having Tyler going through the SMP program. And quite simply, the merge that we did with Tyler as campus director would not be possible if the restrictions were in place at the time when Tyler got through, which was just 6 months ago. And so I hope today's conversation blesses you. If you haven't already, rate, review, subscribe, follow, whatever it is, share, comment, like. And that means a lot to us. But without further ado, let's get to today's episode. Let's do this. All right, this is a fun Red Letter Disciple episode because it's a little bit of my kind of worlds colliding of not just Red Letter and podcast host, but I get to serve at King of Kings as a teaching pastor in Omaha, Nebraska, and we have this great vision of opening up 10 campuses by 2042. And I've been able to play a role in the multi-site director seat and got to be a pivotal part, praise God, of an awesome merge opportunity with a church in Fremont, Nebraska that you're going to hear about. And so as we kind of share this story, that's really what today is. It's storytelling. I do want you to be thinking about two things that are really important in the conversations we've been having on the podcast. Number one is my belief in the SMP pastor program. It is something that I genuinely believe we need more of and to not restrict and limit. And I'm sharing one story of our church that if those restrictions were in place, none of this would even be possible. So I want you to be thinking about that. But also, as we're in a synod that is struggling, many churches are in decline. We had a great opportunity to merge with a church, and I want to share that story because I think that more and more stories and conversations like this are going to happen. And so it's a story with multiple people to tell this story. And so we've got for only one of the 2 or 3 times in the history of the podcast, 3 guests today. So I'm going to have them introduce themselves. Let's go. We'll go Matt and then Kristie and then Tyler. Introduce yourselves to the podcast listeners. All 4 of them.
Yeah, Zach, thank you. My name's Matt Rossow, and my roles at Good Shepherd, which is who we were prior to King of Kings, a little bit of jack of all trades there. I was on the property team for a while. I did the Christian care team for a while, and at the time of our merge, I was fortunate enough to have been elected president of the congregation, so was lucky enough to be able to help us through that and guide through that conversation. And now as King of Kings, it's fun to be part of the production team and just still be part of that team and watching us grow.
And your cool background there for those that are watching, you can tell Matt's full Nebraska with all those John Deere tractor. That's great. Kristie, how about you?
I am Kristie Webb. I am both worlds right now. I came from Good Shepherd. I did multiple roles there: Christian care team, family ministry team, leadership, worship team. And then I also worked in the church office while it was Good Shepherd. And now I am on staff at King of Kings and loving it.
Awesome. And then Tyler.
Yeah, my name's Tyler Rohlfsen. I am the campus director at King of Kings Fremont. Get to work alongside Kristie. Rarely does an hour go by where there's not some sort of text or phone call or email that Kristie and I are tackling. So she and I work very, very closely here at the Fremont campus. And then I am also a vicar in our specific ministry pastor program. Started that in September of this last year. I guess August was orientation, and am blessed, overwhelmingly blessed, that Zach is serving as my SMP mentor, and hopefully he's getting a little bit out of it as well.
I'll give you the extra credit points there for that relationship. That's sweet, and we love having Tyler on the team and going through the program, and it is a blessing. And I do get something out of it. That's one of the cool things about SMP is the amount of mentors that believe in this program, because it's actually really beneficial and helpful for us to look at things and to be in that spot. And so, Tyler, your story is going to kind of weave into this later as we jump into sharing a little bit of the merge story. So this first probably half will be more Matt and Kristie telling the story, and then how you entered in is kind of fun too. But Matt, I'd love for you to take us back. You were serving as president of Good Shepherd. Before we kind of got to like the merge conversations, like think of the good years. What was Good Shepherd like when it was at its best? What did you love about it? How long you been a part of it? Kind of share a little of the Good Shepherd journey.
Yeah, you bet. Been part of Good Shepherd, now King of Kings, for 49 years. And in its heyday, Good Shepherd was a thriving church. Our location in Fremont is, at one point, one of our slogans was, "We're the heart of Jesus in the heart of Fremont," because we're right at the corner of a very popular intersection in town. Worshiping 200-300 a weekend over a couple different services, a vibrant youth group, which I was blessed to be a part of, and a group of people there that were just good friends. And not only above and beyond that, our parents were friends. So, the church softball team that we had, those of us who were in youth group, we were all together hanging out there, and we'd go, get food afterwards and go to someone's house for after the games and things. So, those were the heydays. And, my time in youth group where I really kind of felt a spirit movement was after my first National Youth Gathering to New Orleans. So that was a big pinnacle movement for me, and just to been lucky and fortunate and blessed by God to be part of leadership of Good Shepherd and now part of King of Kings since then.
Yeah. And Kristie, talk about your role with Good Shepherd and what the church kind of meant to you.
I wasn't there quite as long as Matt. We were there probably about
hardly anybody
years.
Has been, right?
Thank you.
He outdoes everybody. I was there for about 20 years. We started going to Good Shepherd when the kids were fairly little. So they grew up. I mean, they grew up in the church. They went to Sunday school, midweek, vacation Bible school, confirmed all the way through. I really got involved when I became a part of the family ministry and just helping out with Sunday school, and loved to teach the Sunday school. We did an event each year back to Bethlehem. That was always fun and was known in the community. So that was always fun to put together. And I loved to organize that, and just to see the hundreds of people that would come through for that event. And then I would go on to work for Good Shepherd also. So it was also my job, but I loved to do it. And I enjoyed every day when I went to work, that I got to see the people that loved Good Shepherd also, but I got to know them more on a personal level, and just know more about them, and know more than get to know them more deeply, where I hadn't had that opportunity just being a member of it.
Yeah. So this great, deep, and rich history that, had some great years and some great moments. When, for you guys, I'll start with Matt, when did you kind of realize, like, we had a great history and things were awesome at one point, but something's kind of got to change here at Good Shepherd? What would you say was that for you?
For me, it was just, kind of the eye test. You could see that the congregation was aging. A person could see that the size of youth group was dwindling. You went from in the teens for a confirmation class to single digits, to my daughter, when she got confirmed, she was the only one. Mm-hmm. So the eye test is probably what worked for me, as far as you could see that there was something needed to change in order for us to be vital as an ongoing congregation.
And about what time or year frame was that?
Oh gosh, probably early 2000s, I would say, is kind of when you started noticing more and more of that.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah. From your perspective, Kristie, what did it feel like kind of when things on the inside, you're starting, Matt's talking the eye test, but you can also look at numbers and just see there's some decline. So what does that feel like when you're working on the inside and you're seeing that decline?
It was difficult to start seeing that decline. And we probably came into the church at the start of that decline, but just to see people that had been there and to see just the emotion. I mean, there was people leaving that weren't there anymore. That group, that original church family wasn't there. So it was difficult for people to navigate through that. It was frustrating sometimes just to see that things need to be changed, but we didn't know what needed to be changed maybe, or how to get that change to happen, and how to navigate that change. And it was just sad because you could feel maybe a sense of defeat as the years went on, that we just couldn't grow it. Like, we were trying, but we just could not get those numbers back up.
Matt, from your perspective, why is that? Like, you see things need to change, we're not sure what, but what do you kind of look back on, or do you look back on those 15, 20 years or so of like these were the reasons for decline, or is there anything specific kind of to point to, or is it just kind of still, I don't know, we don't really know why?
Really don't know why. It probably is the best answer. I mean, there can be contributing factors, of course, when it's in death and dying. You have members who are dying and not replacing them with younger either members or people with kids, especially, that can help grow that faction of the church. And the future of any church is going to be its youth and kids. And when you didn't see those, it got kind of easy to see that there was a decline that was in place and happening. And like Kristie said, trying to figure out how to fix that is the hard part.
Yeah. And do you feel like were the people kind of aware of this, or was there some denial for a while?
Oh, definitely denial. I think LCMS, a good German background faith here, so we are we can't change. We have to keep going doing the same thing, and it'll change on its own. But those who could see it and understand it, I think that there was some understanding there, and I think our leadership team that we had in place then was seeing that, and that's what as we're going to talk about, that's what led to where we're at.
Yeah. So how did the idea of Emerge then get on the table for you guys? Because that's not typically where a church would go to, and again, part of the reason for sharing this story is I think it needs to be more of a part of the picture. So how did the idea of Emerge come up for you, Matt, when you were president?
That's a crazy story. Part of it is just being bold. And when I became president, the pastor that we had at that time, Ryan Ankerson, when I met with him after I got elected, and he happened to just share the story, he said, "Hey, when I first got here 4 years ago, I think it was this time, Greg Griffith from King of Kings at Omaha reached out and had just a small conversation about what Emerge would look like." And at that time, with Pastor Ankerson's tenure being new, like, that's not the right time to do it, because he's got to have his time to try to grow. Well, then when Ryan took a different call, and we were in a vacancy situation and things like that, and then that's the time that I was elected president, and Ryan had given me Greg's number and your contact info, Zach, and like, what's the harm in making a call? The worst they could say is, no, this isn't the right time for us, and then we all move on. But praise God, that wasn't the answer we got. So, yeah.
And go back to even before, like when you got Ryan, I think part of the reason in those early conversations that the Emerge was even more on the table is, right, the church had continued to kind of have decline, and Ryan did some really great things in the community. And then he wasn't there super long, and from my understanding, had to go somewhere else for the sake of his family, which was you understand that. It's great. You need to do that.
Mm-hmm.
But it took, you tell me, I think I've heard you say 11 or 12 call attempts previously to get Ryan.
Before
Is that
Ryan.
correct?
Yeah, correct. Yeah, before Ryan, and Kristie was on that call team too. So yeah, that's part of the story too, Zach. You're exactly right. We tried, just finding those pastors out there in the LCMS was very, very difficult. And the congregation, the voters had told us that they wanted somebody with experience. We didn't go at that time. We didn't want to go with somebody right out of seminary. So finding someone with experience that was willing to come to a church that, if you look at papers and you look at the numbers of things, they're coming to a church that is in decline. So it's hard to convince someone to try to do that. And we were thankful for the time Ryan gave us, for sure. And that's God talking right there too.
Yeah, and for those listening in, so why are we having so many conversations around pastoral formation on this podcast? Why are people so passionate about this? So the things that Good Shepherd went through in 2018, 19, whatever that was, they were already struggling on their 11th or 12th call to find somebody. And we are every year having so many more pastors retire out. The pool is getting smaller and smaller and smaller. And so some of us are looking at that and saying, hey, we should do something about that proactively. And that's why these conversations exist, because every single time we don't form a pastor, there's a church out there that's going to be missing out. And so if anyone's wondering, are we really in a place where it's as bad as y'all are saying it is? And I'm saying, well, yeah, we're already there, and it's about to fall off a cliff unless we do something a lot differently. And so I know that was a huge part of even, the future for you guys is after Ryan took another call and went to serve elsewhere, do we even want to go through that process again? It didn't work out. It was very painful how it worked out last time, those years of waiting. But so the merger was an idea. So there were other ideas as well. But what were, either one of you, Kristie or Matt, can answer, what do you think were kind of the biggest fears when people heard the word merge?
I think for me, one of them, and Kristie can expand too, I think a lot of people, when they hear the word merge, they think lack of control. 70-year history of being Good Shepherd Lutheran Church in Fremont, and directing your ministry there. I think that was a hard thing for some people, is like, well, if we merge, then we don't have control. We can't have these voters meetings or things that we have now, because we wouldn't be essentially the leadership of that. So I think that was one thing that was hard for people.
Yeah. And just the identity of Good Shepherd. I think just the years that they had been there, the longevity of it. We had just celebrated our 70th anniversary. So it was just, I think it was even just the identity of our own church, of Good Shepherd.
Yeah. So Matt, as we started talking, what gave you confidence to kind of explore the option of a merge and then to continue the conversations?
Well, probably first and foremost is just my deep love for this church, this community. I said that I've been a part of Good Shepherd for 49 years. Well, my 50th birthday is next week. So I've been here a long time, and I think that I felt a pull in my heart, and I can only believe that it was the Holy Spirit speaking through that. Is we need to find a way to keep this location, this part, a vibrant congregation that is part of the Lutheran Church Missouri Synod.
Yeah. And I remember that first meeting that I had with you, Matt, and I drove out to Fremont. And Fremont's a suburb of Omaha. It's maybe 30 minutes from our broadcast campus. And, you go out there not knowing what to expect. And I was kind of blown away when I came onto property. And this is a piece of, again, why I think we've got to figure this stuff out, because it's such a prominent location off of a thoroughfare that is just so evident. And it's a beautiful building. And there's a brand new community building gymnasium built onto it like 15 years ago. And I walked into it like, wow, there is so much potential here and excitement. And so how do we figure out how this can become a vibrant church again? And so, as we started talking, and then Matt serving as president, and Kristie was involved in some of those conversations as well. Like, what would you say? We named a little bit of the fear of, losing control or identity. What were some of the other members' initial reactions to becoming a part of another church?
I think their initial reaction as the members, I think there was just a broad array of mixed emotions, just because there's so many people that were involved in it. You had anywhere from sad because you're looking at the reality of where we're at and what that may look like. Anger, and part of that is denial, is that we weren't in a bad enough state yet to have to make that choice, that we should just keep going forward and call a pastor on. But I think that there was a part maybe of a little bit of a relief that there may be an answer to continue to do ministry in the location that we were at. It just may look a little different.
Yeah. Anything to add to that, Matt?
Well, as strange as it sounds, seeing the wide range of reactions was probably one of my most memorable things of this whole process. Like Kristie said, everything from sadness about, we lose our identity, we lose our control, to others and people who've been part of the church for all 70 years who are like, this sounds like a neat idea. Let's look into this. Let's keep going. Let's ask some questions. Let's hear some news. Let's see what this could maybe be. It was incredible to see that.
And of course, anything that's of this importance for people, you're going to have that wide array of emotions. What ultimately led Matt, you and the church to say this is the direction we should go?
Well, a binder full of meetings right here. One of the things that I felt was important, and that our leadership council felt important, was that we communicate. This is something that's going to affect many lives and affect the spiritual lives of people. So we tried our hardest to communicate as often as we could, whether it was through mailings or meetings, just what our options were. Because like you said, Zach, this merge wasn't our only option. There were other options, merging with another church, the Lutheran school in Fremont. There was an option with that. We could have sold the building. We could have sold the property to somebody else and gone a different direction that way. So there were many options on the table, and we were very clear when we had our meetings that I think it was 4 options. We had merge with A and B, and then we had call a pastor, and the 4th option was close. And those were all very real options that were all on the table. Even though nobody wanted number 4, it definitely was one of our options. So I think that was certainly a major part of that, was just communication.
Yeah, and you handled that masterfully, I thought, by allowing each of those options to come before the people and ultimately to get input and say. And I remember the day, I'm sure you do as well, Matt, of kind of making the official decision, which of course happens at board meetings. And, that there in both of our bylaws, right, there needed to just be a majority from both sides to go through. But then when we looked at Nebraska nonprofits merging, we saw that, their bylaws supersede ours, and it needs to be a 2/3 majority. And Matt, do you remember the vote on what the vote was?
It was exactly 2/3. Yeah.
50 to 25, if I remember right.
Yeah, I think that's right. Yep. I could probably find it in here, but yeah, I think 50 to 25 was the exact number there.
Yeah, it's so crazy and so wild that it was on the number, and on the King of Kings side, it was a lot higher than that. But clearly, it's going to be higher in these merge situations. You would think on the receiving side than the side that's leaving. And so I think it's really easy to point out for situations like this that there's going to be a wide array of emotions. There's going to be people that vote yes, people that vote no. It's not simple by any stretch of the imagination. But once that kind of went through, we started, cool, let's put some plans together. I think that vote was in like September or October, or before it was kind of official. And there was a vacancy pastor serving there. And we kind of said, hey, why don't you finish the rest of the year kind of as is. And then as we come into the calendar year, which for us was 2025, King of Kings will start to do some more things and work our way towards a fully launched campus, which the goal for us was as soon as we could, but would end up being in September of 2025. But we started doing some things, and we started holding leadership classes and Bible studies and things like that. And so what, from your perspective, Matt and Kristie, what were the first parts of that transition like?
Scary, as you can imagine. What's this really going to look like and all that? But then once we started seeing the love and care that the people at King of Kings had for us before we were even a fully launched campus, it just, for me, it was like, this is how it should be. This is people loving on each other, caring for each other, working towards a common goal of getting more people to heaven. And to see that from a staff and from a group of people who didn't know us, at all, to having people come on campus, and I think a lot had the same reaction you did, Zach, is there's a lot of potential here. I mean, the location, the building, and so on, and to see that build was neat to see.
Yeah, and the more I was there, not just the location and the building, but the people, just a real servant hearts. Kristie, what surprised you most kind of in those early days of Merge?
I just think it surprised me first of all, how smooth it kind of went. I just think a lot of things fell into place and it just felt natural. But I think part of that was too, the caring, just the overwhelming sense of just caring from King of Kings and understanding kind of that grief process that people were going through, and walking alongside of us through that, and what could they do to help us.
Yeah, I remember one of the more meaningful, at least from my end, and I heard this as well from the folks at Good Shepherd, and I learned this play from Scott Geiger, who's a pastor out in Carmel, Indiana at Cornerstone, was to do kind of just a story night, and we did that in December of 2024 before it kind of became King of Kings officially, and just got a chance to come and bring 15 or 20 of our staff and board and just have the members of Good Shepherd share the 70-year history. And we just started at the front of tell us about this place and who was here and what are the stories we need to know. And it was a really powerful night. And it really showed to me that in a Merge, right, you have kind of I view it as a dance. It's kind of talked about as a dance in some books and things that you read, where there's a leading partner and a joining partner. And we were certainly the leading partner, but if you want to be a good dance partner as the lead partner, you need to bring the other one along the way, and not just do everything the way you want, but honor them and be a part of their story, understand what's important to them, how they like to dance. And again, not everything can change. That's a little bit of why we were in that situation, is because, we recognize that there's certainly a path at King of Kings that would be healthy for Good Shepherd. But it was really fun. And though it may have appeared that things were in control, they weren't. We were freaking out on the King of Kings side. We'd never done this. It was brand new for us. We weren't planning on it. We want to open up campuses, but we'd never done a merge, and this one kind of came about more quicker than we were ready for it. And I'm super grateful we did it, and we said yes, but we were not ready for it. And this is where we insert not only Tyler, but especially God into this, because I know the plans were great. Let's work towards a fully launched campus. But to do that, we want to have a team in place, and we want to have somebody that at least eventually can serve as your pastor. And so the team started taking place with Kristie in March, and then we started having conversations with Tyler right around there as well. So Tyler, what do you remember kind of about that time frame, and what were you up to at this point? And welcome back to the podcast, Tyler Rohlfsen, everybody.
I've just been working on other stuff for the last 25 minutes, so you guys have been doing great. So at that point, I guess a little more background on my story. So right out of college, my first ministry role, full-time ministry role, was working for Zach's dad, Mark Zehnder, where he was at that point lead pastor at King of Kings. And so I served under Mark's leadership for 8 years. And then during that time, that's when Pastor Greg Griffith was called as lead pastor. And so then I served under Greg for 2 or 3 more years. Interestingly, and I told Greg this very early on, I said, Greg, do you remember like 6 years ago? This would have been 2018, 2019. It was just an offhanded comment that you had made that you're like, Tyler, there are churches closing all the time across our synod. Like, what are we going to do about that? And I'm like, I don't know, man. And then I'm sure, that was one piece of many that led to the kind of current 10 campuses in 20 years vision. So the Lord kind of stepped in strangely and miraculously and unexpectedly in our lives in 2021 and called us out to serve at a church in Connecticut. At that point, I had fully been in the center of the country. Omaha, went to school in Texas, and then back to Omaha. And so starting in summer of 2021, I was leading worship and overseeing communications at this just amazing church, St. Paul Westport. And things were going quite well. And then at the beginning of 2025, right about that January timeframe, things out there, it was obvious that the season for us was going to come to an end. But we knew it was going to be a few months, but we saw an end. And then right about that same time, Greg reached out to me saying, hey, this Fremont thing's in motion. And every time we're praying about it, your name's coming to the top. Could we chat? And I'm like, well, your timing's impeccable because this is what's happening on the Connecticut side. And so, a number of conversations and considerations. And part of that was what's possible within our synod and what's going on with this SMP. There are miracles all over the place, but one of the biggest miracles Zach will attest to is the 9-day gap from starting the SMP application to getting it in by the hard deadline. And then kind of in that time, we said, yeah, we're in. We got to fly out here to meet the Fremont campus. And that same time, we heard of the official acceptance into SMP. Kristie was kind of doing 4 jobs at once while I was just wrapping up life in Connecticut. And then we formally moved here in June and then started in the campus role in July.
That's cool. Tyler, for you, what's the SMP journey been like so far for you? So you started last August, orientation, had a couple classes, had an intensive class in there as well. So what's that been like so far?
Yeah, it's been tremendous. It's a really, really well built program. It's incredible. It's academically robust, while also built in such a way that you're expected to have like be operating in some sort of ministry role, and then knowing that your part-time education is indeed that part-time. And so then, so for some of my classmates, they have a full-time job while they're bivocationally vicaring to be pastoring, and then also doing 10 to 20 hours of schoolwork on the side. And I'm like, oh my goodness, I'm so blessed because my full-time job is ministry. Yeah. And so the relationships with the guys has been tremendous. Top flight professors, currently going through a class under Dr. Joel Bierman in systematics. And I think one thing that I've really enjoyed from a learning, formation, development standpoint is there's always this beautiful give and take between talking about it in theory and over Zoom on Mondays, and then somehow during the week that concept comes into practice. And that, Zach, you and I are meeting pretty much weekly. And there seems to be something where I'm like, oh, I never encountered this before. Let's talk about it. And in a lot of ways, that's kind of the best way we learn, is that we take it in reading and conversation, but then you actually put it into practice, and then you reflect on it, and then you refine it. And so I've actually probably been surprised of like, this is a real journey of development and growth that I don't know if I had fully expected. But I wouldn't rather be any other place.
Yeah. And along those lines, we have a lot of conversation in our synod, and Matt and Kristie have heard undertones and overtones of this as well, on pastoral formation of kind of residential versus everything else, and SMP is included in that. Why was SMP the right choice for you, and why wouldn't residential work for someone like you, Tyler?
Yeah, one of the biggest things was right about that same time that our season in Connecticut was coming to an end. My wife's father was diagnosed with cancer, and then that kind of that sense of kind of homesickness was strong, but then also just the ministry opportunity that it kind of from all angles, were like, this really feels like God is setting this up. And there's always going to be a tension, right, between formation and mission. But I was, even just early in the call, I was reflecting on, like, man, Jesus did send his disciples out in the middle of the Gospels. He didn't wait until they got through everything. He sent them out in the power of the Spirit and gave them authority and go. And I think for to be able to be fully formed as a pastor, while also the opportunity to be active in ministry and growing through that, it's certainly beneficial for me, but hopefully I'm not putting words in Matt and Kristie's mouth, but I'm praying it's beneficial for them and for this entire King of Kings Fremont campus. And it's kind of like we're all on this journey together, and really believing that it's worthwhile.
Yeah, one more on that, and then we'll get back to kind of catching up people on where the story's at now and where King of Kings in Fremont is at. But I part of my reason for wanting this conversation is to continue to be an advocate for getting as many people into SMP and just into pastoral formation as possible. And I've been very vocal and frustrated with the newest restrictions that talk about that you need to be more than 40 years old to enter the program, and also have limitations on churches that have 1,000 members or 1,000 attendees on a weekend. Because both of those, like as I'm looking, if those are in our policy restrictions, like if we're in the same boat this year as opposed to last year, like thank God it worked last year. Because Tyler, how old are you?
I'm 33 now. I was 32 at the time we submitted the application. Yeah.
So 7 or 8 years away, and residential wasn't a good option for you. And the mission work is right here and right now, and there's a plan set up. And how many stories like the one you're hearing today just simply wouldn't happen because our synod can't figure out a pathway to help all different types of churches with all different types of missions. And so, so I really appreciate, obviously, the timing of how God worked this and all those that were involved, especially President Snow in our district, to really move things along, to see some really great things, because we have seen some really great things. And so that's where let's get back to kind of the story now that Tyler's entered into it. We're a little over a year, I suppose, into being officially King of Kings, but about 6 months into kind of a fully launched campus is what we would say. And so, let me start with Kristie and just catch us up on where things are at today, kind of comparatively to maybe where they were prior to King of Kings, and what you're seeing and what God's up to.
There's new life, I feel like, in the church. There's just a breath of fresh air in the people. We've seen so many more new, younger people coming in that would have probably never have come in that door or have heard the news of God. So it's just been encouraging to see that growth, to see the excitement in people, to see that new life back in the church again and in the people, and just the excitement that they're wanting to get out there and share the word and get more people in. Yeah.
How about from your end, Matt?
Yeah, the same. Just a new life. Just the vibrance of it, and we talked about earlier with Good Shepherd, 70 years of history there. Well, along with 70 years comes a 70-year-old building, so there were things that were starting to need repair, and as you referred to it, Zach, as the new addition that was 15 years old. So those kinds of things were realities that we were in. And, on the property team that I was in, also, we always said we needed to refer to number one. And number one was, do we have the funds? And a lot of times that wasn't the case. So having a new energy, a larger church with maybe more resources, we're able to do some of the things to our property that we wouldn't have been able to do, as Good Shepherd. And as things age, they need replaced, and safety standards and that kind of thing. So that part from us too, from just a campus perspective, was nice to be able to join in with some resources that were able to keep our building up to standards too.
I'd love to hear kind of from all of you here on this question, but what's this journey, as much as you've been a part of it, what's it done for your own faith? Any one of you can start, whoever wants.
I'll start, sure. For my faith, I'll share this. I wasn't one that participated in Bible studies much prior, and after the merge here with King of Kings, and I don't know if it's because there's a weight lifted off, or you talked about the breath of fresh air. It's just a different attitude. I love our Wednesday Connect group, and we have a lot of fun in it. And but the topmost part of that is we're also able to dig further into the Word as part of it. So from someone who maybe didn't participate in Bible studies much before to someone that is saying Wednesdays are appointment, those are things you don't miss. That's been big for me in my faith, and just the growing of the church itself too, and being able to help with production and all that. Something else that I enjoy. It's been fun getting to work with George and JC, on campus there, and seeing that side too. So that's been a big one for me.
Yeah. Mine has just been my faith, but my trust in God, and just seeing how his plans have worked and have put me in spots that have been able to help along in that journey. That I was at Good Shepherd, but I at one point had made that decision to leave, but that was the right time. So then I can move to leadership to help guide us through then down this path. And in that time, then I met other people that now, who would have never been in church before, have now come to Good Shepherd, or to King of Kings, and they're inviting people. So it's been eye-opening to see how God is weaving in the plan of life and just how he's working everything for good.
Yeah, I don't know if this is okay, Zach, but I'm gonna throw a question back at you as the host. And a bit of setup here is that like when we take faith-filled risks and like we don't feel the pressure to have it all figured out and controlled, like certainly Matt and Kristie and the Good Shepherd family, they took a faith-filled risk, but King of Kings did as well. It like the Lord really does show up. And what I stepped in over the summer of last year, where I got to see all the amazing things that are happening on like a weekly basis at King of Kings Fremont, from the kids to the students to the new people that were showing up to the leaders that were making themselves like known and like, oh wow, Lord, the God's doing something. People that are inviting and proud of their church, where it's like, wow, praise God. And so I see that in Fremont, and then I get to be in the staff meetings and hear how what's happening at King of Kings Fremont is such an encouragement to the whole rest of the King of Kings system. And so, Zach, from your side, where did you see God at work in the King of Kings story?
Thank you, Vicar, for asking that. No, I think it's beautiful. And I think you started to hint at it, that for me, what I've seen in my life, and this is just another example of when you don't need to have every step figured out. You just need to take the right next step. And when you do, like, I just think of when we risk ourselves for our faith, we get to see things, we get to experience parts of God that we otherwise would have missed. And that to me is the most beautiful piece, is that had we all said no to this, we will have never known, right? Maybe God moved it in a different way, or we'd have been involved in other things, and maybe God shows up in those things. But the fact is that when we say yes to taking a step, we don't have to have it all figured out. But when you do, when you kind of risk and do those faith-filled moments in your life, whether it's individually or with a group of people, which this one was, we get to experience other things. I think that was even one of the very first devotions that I gave on one of the nights with the folks at that time that were still Good Shepherd, of really inviting them to be in on this early. And I was talking about the devotion of Jonathan and the armor bearer. I think it's 1 Samuel 14 and 15. And it's just a really powerful story of Israel had no weapons. They had two swords. One was Jonathan's and one was his dad Saul's. Israel, the Philistines, had all the weapons. And yet Jonathan had this confidence to go up against the Philistines with his armor bearer. And the joke I make there is like the number one job responsibility of an armor bearer is to bear arms, and he didn't even have any. Like, but his armor bearer was with him, and like what? Yeah, and I just love the confidence. And so they go up, and they, through God, of course, defeat the first round of Philistines, and then Saul and the other 600 people that were hiding out hear commotion. And then they get to join in, and then the next battle takes place where more Philistines are getting destroyed. And then I think it's another 3,000 or 10,000, one of those two numbers, are even further away, and they hear the commotion, and they join in. And by that time, all they really see is the Philistines running away. And so I talk about how fun it is that all of them got to be around the campfire that night and celebrate the victory. But there was two people specifically, Jonathan and the armor bearer, that got to see God do things that the rest of the group didn't get to see. And so that's kind of been the invitation, is be a part of this from the beginning to see what God does. And I will say, Matt and myself and Kristie and the group at the beginning, we have stories of God showing up that the rest of the people, they can celebrate with us, but they didn't quite see it like we did. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Beautiful.
Mm-hmm.
So, so we're on decline. We're doing the merge. God's showing up. where are things like kind of from a numbers, not that everything's about numbers, but I'd love to kind of give a perspective on where we are a little over a year into the merge and 6 months into public relaunch.
Yeah, Matt or Kristie would have to kind of give a sense of what Good Shepherd was like in the 2024 timeframe, where we're currently now, running our 2 services on a Sunday, kids ministry at both hours, students on Wednesdays. You kind of add those up over the course of a given week. We're going to be somewhere in like the 140 to 170 range on an average week. Christmas was a huge highlight with well over 300 people here. And it's like numbers are good to see trends and all that sort of thing. But like, I'm like every single one of those numbers has a name and has a story and need God and praise God that we're in a position to supply what everyone most basically needs. And that is life with Jesus.
Right. And to compare that to prior to merge, we were worshiping 45 to 60 on a weekend, with no youth group and very few Sunday school aged children that were involved, and even those weren't consistent. So it's palpable, that change.
Yeah. The numbers have definitely moved up and forward, and especially in the kids, because I think Sunday school we were lucky if we had maybe 2-3 in Sunday school on a Sunday. So to see kids ministry right now too, just taking off, the student ministry, connect groups, just to get people into those connect groups are taking off. So it's encouraging just to see all the numbers go up.
Yeah, and I remember looking at one Sunday in November, kind of an anomaly Sunday, but there was like 53 kids on a Sunday. I think 10 of them might have been the Rohlfsen extended family kids, but there's 43 other kids. Like, what in the world? And that's what I love, though, is just seeing little Sundays like that. When you take a risk and when you put your faith on the line and God shows up, like you said, the numbers are important because every number represents a story. So kind of given a little bit of counsel or advice, maybe I'll start with you, Matt. If a church is out there and hearing the word church merger, or maybe thinking about changing but afraid, how would you kind of counsel them?
Be bold in your faith. First and foremost, pray about it, and listen to, take the time to be quiet and listen to what you're feeling from that. Don't be afraid to have the hard conversations. And a lot of times your biggest rewards come from times of trial. And if that's your situation in the church you're at now, those conversations can be not only rewarding for yourself, but also for your community and your church community too.
Yeah. What I'd love to hear from all of you, one or two things. Let's go 2 things each. So a bonus for those of you who goes first, because you get to pick anything. But what are a couple of things that you would say when you look back? And not everything's been perfect, right? There's been challenges along the way for sure. But what made this merge healthy instead of harmful? So if a church is thinking about merging, or maybe that is an opportunity, and listen, not every church should do that. That's where I love, Matt, your words of prayer about it, and obviously conversation. And usually these things result in votes, and there's a lot of steps along the way. But if a church is considering a merge, like when you look back, what are a couple steps each that make a merge healthy instead of harmful?
I'm going to go back to number 1, communication, and number 2, that boldness. Have yourself a support system too. Talked about me being president at the time. Obviously, it wasn't just me. The leadership team that we had in place at that time was phenomenal, and we wouldn't have got the work done that we needed to without them.
Yeah. And I think it's going into it with just an open heart, open mind. Change is hard. but sometimes that change is what we need to catapult us forward a little bit and grow us. And sometimes we can see the biggest transformation in that change then.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And then I would just say, just being there, just the understanding where everybody's at. Not everybody's going to be on the same page, but to walk and talk with them and understand where they're at and walk through that with them.
Yeah. How about from your end, Tyler?
Yeah, I'd save myself for last so I could be number 5 and number 6 here. Yeah, going off what Matt said about communication, clarity is just huge. Matt, I don't know if you remember this. It was either when I visited in May or when I started in July. It was right before a service and you were in the production booth and you and I just had a quick moment. And I said, hey, from your standpoint, you kind of heard all of like the promises of what would be from Zach and Greg and the others back last year. Like, has that like materialized? And the heart behind me is like, I just like, are people thinking this was like a bait and switch? And your answer, do you remember what you said, Matt?
I said a lot of things to you.
His answer was no. Zach and Greg are frauds.
No, your answer was like spirit inspired. You took a pause and you smiled and you said, Tyler, it's been more. It was yes and more. And one thing I love about Pastor Greg is he is never afraid of being candid, but for the sake of clarity. And so that was just highly encouraging to me that yes, it's going to be a bell curve of the people over here that are saying we should have done this 19 years ago. And the people over here that's like, I could never get on board with this. And then everywhere in the middle. But for that kind of, middle 80 or so to be able to say like, yeah, this is what King of Kings said would happen to the best of their knowledge. And it's been what we expected. And then we saw God show up in all of these crazy ways, which is the and more. And so that clarity piece. And then the second thing is from the sending church or the multiplying church, I think it's really important that to just mention, like, this was not imperialistic in the sense of King of Kings looking out like, okay, what churches can we take over sometime soon? And so for it to be really a courtship and a relationship and investigating and prayer and discerning, I think that makes things healthy. We're not saying that every church needs to go multi-site or multi-campus ministry is the future, but it is a model, and it is a way that God is working to draw more people into His kingdom. And so for a church like King of Kings or another multi-site to say, well, Lord, we're open to what doors you're going to open, and we'll see what happens. And then for churches that maybe find themselves where Good Shepherd was in 2019, 2021, 22, to say, okay, well, maybe this is an option for us too. And what I love about it is like, it was the better part of a full year to kind of investigate and discern and go on dates together. But here we are on the other side, and we wouldn't have it any other way.
Yeah. And I'll just say this, like you said, it's not for everybody, but if there is a church out there that is considering merging either as the leading or joining partner, feel free to reach out to my email, zach@redletterchallenge.com. I will forward it to the right person, but we learned successfully how to do a merge with, I think, 16 different steps in there. We learned that from, again, our other friends in the LCMS, Tom Fotenhauer and Scott Geiger, and used a lot of what they had and made it our own just a little bit. But it was really helpful. So if you're like, I don't even know where to start, we can help you with that. And that's easy to do. So just shoot an email and we'll get you some information on that side of things if that's of interest. But let me have one final question for you guys. Obviously, we've talked about what was, what changed, how it is today. I want you to kind of get 5-year eyes out on this thing in Fremont, Nebraska at King of Kings. And what do you expect? What do you hope for that King of Kings would look like 5 years from now, seeing all that you've seen so far? And I'll go reverse order this time. Go Tyler, Kristie, Matt.
What I see well, gosh, we're not even a year into this. And so we're thinking 5 years. I love it. A few things come to mind. One is that, that King of Kings Fremont is recognized within the community as a radically uncommon, Jesus following, generous community blessing church. And that when people hear that, that's my church, the immediate association is, wow, they're doing amazing things. And even if they know nothing about the Bible or Jesus or the kingdom of God, they just think something's happening there that I want to get in on. And then I see people that have had their lives radically transformed by Jesus, and can't help but bringing that message to their community, that we continue to sustain what God has done and is doing. More kids, more students, and then greater depths of relationship and faith.
Cool. How about you, Kristie?
Tyler covered a lot of it. And it's keeping those numbers going, keeping that life going, because I think that'll just be contagious to the community, even as we're out in the community, is if they can see Christ in us and that life and that excitement, I think that's just going to keep those numbers going forward. And just to be out in the community, to love on people, to know that we love people how they are and they can come exactly how they are.
That's cool. And Matt?
Yep. Same as Tyler and Kristie also, not only numbers, but community involvement. And we've done a good job of that so far. And I know that's going to continue to grow. And Tyler's a big piece of that. He's a social guy, and we're so thankful that God brought him here, because I think he's going to be known in the community, and that association to King of Kings will be extremely important. So that's number one. And number two, if we're thinking 5 years, how can we help campus number 4 if it hasn't happened already? How can what we've learned through our process not only help King of Kings open campus number 4, but maybe anybody else you mentioned earlier, Zach, anybody else who's listening? How can we help others have the same success that we've experienced?
Lord, let it be all those things. And part of the reason why I wanted to end with that question is because there's too many churches out there that have had, like Good Shepherd had faithful people, but had years of decline, and they weren't really sure why. And I wanted to share a story of hope. And now we're thinking not 5 years of decline, but we're thinking of, we can change the community. Lives can be changed. Of course, more numbers, more kids, more students, more recognition. How can we help others? And I wanted to end with that question, because I just want to remind people that growth is possible, quality and quantity. But it oftentimes requires new thinking. It requires bold moves. It requires taking risks for our faith. But it's pretty awesome when we see God at work. And so I've loved getting to be a part of this story with you guys and in all of your lives, and excited to see what God keeps doing at King of Kings. And so if anybody is curious to check out King of Kings, you can go to kingofkings.org. Thank you guys so much for listening. Thank you, Matt, Kristie, and Tyler, for being guests on today's podcast. And you guys are a blessing, and let's keep going for the Lord. Amen.
Amen.
Thank you, Zach.
Thank you, Zach.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Well, I love getting to work with those three, and I love seeing, most of all, God show up in incredible ways and bring a lot of new life to a church that has a lot more new life to go. So we're grateful to God and all that he's done in the Good Shepherd to King of Kings transition and merge. And again, if you want to know more about what King of Kings is like, you can go to kingofkings.org, or if you're considering getting into a merge, whether that's on the sending or the joining side, you can email me, Zach, at redletterchallenge.com, and I'd be happy to share a little bit more of our process with you. Hope this conversation blessed you, and Big thanks to Hodos, our sponsor for today. You can go to Hodos, Hodos, Way, W-A-Y, HodosWay.com, and get more information on the new nonprofit ministry that's launching for 18 to 29-year-olds, where we are in 2027 going to be having a Lutheran young adult gathering. It's going to be awesome. Check it out. Put your email in. Stay up to date. And hey, if you haven't yet, subscribe or follow on whatever platform. That way you don't miss next week's episode of Red Letter Disciple. God bless you and have a great week.